Welcome students and interested viewers in our first virtual hand quilting class at the Tobacco Farm Life Museum in Kenly, North Carolina, where Melody Worthington is the executive director. My name is Molly Renfro. Have Cedar Chest Quilting. You can reach me at molly.renfro@gmail.com if you have questions after the class. Now, with the embroidery thread, because it is 2 strands, you would want to, and I hid it from myself, your trusted beeswax. You'll want to take and run that thread through the beeswax so that it coats the thread and it keeps it from tangling. It won't tangle as much with the beeswax up there. With the embroidery thread, you want to clip off the little tail end because you won't need that. Now once we've cut out your tree trunk, we applied your basting tape to the back so that you can place it. And we want to place it along the seam, bottom seam of the pillowcase. And I'm going to turn this around so I can make sure I have it all the way to the end. And center it. If you need to mark the center of your tree so that you can apply it to the crease that shows the center of your pillowcase, then do that. Now this basting tape is only going to hold it temporarily, so we just don't want it to shift when we start sewing. Then we're going to take our trusted cardboard and insert it underneath the tree inside. So it's just inserted so that when we start stitching, we won't stitch the back of the pillowcase. I like to start at the top so that I can get my stitches going smoothly before I get down to the bottom. And when I start at the top, I'm going to go all the way around so I will end at the top. And this is where you may want to use your thimble on your finger when you have your hand underneath and you can't see it. So with your embroidery thread, you can start from the top or the bottom. It's up to you as long as your knot is not showing. And we're just going to stitch around. And because these are going to be showing and it's going to be permanent, I'm going to make my stitches about 1/4 to 1/2 of an inch, no more than a 1/2 inch long. And I take 2 to 3 stitches, rocking the needle in and out, and then pulling the thread through and making sure it's tight. Okay, we're going to go ahead and stitch all the way around. Now, if your basting tape isn't holding in place like you need to, you can always use safety pins or your trusted straight pins to hold it in place until you stitch it. And my branch is trying to rise up, so I am going to pin it down. And this doesn't take that long because you're doing a what is called a big stitch. You want to secure it so it'll wear nicely when your pillow is displayed on your bed or on your couch. And if you can remember to hold the short end with the needle when you pull through, it will not come out. Be careful on the turns that you keep your stitches consistent in the length and size. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. See, that is laying down nice and flat. Try to keep these corners from rising up when I get to them. My cordboard is underneath the inside, so I'm not sticking myself with my hand that's inside, but still have to be careful with these needles. Adding the batting at the beginning is gonna give you more three-dimensional effect on your pillow as you're finishing it. If you just want it flat, you can wait till the end and add it, but I like to add it at the beginning so that everything's sewn together at one time. And I get that three-dimensional effect of the tree being more alive than just flat. When it comes to tying off your thread, careful not to get my back, but I'm gonna go right back through the stitches that I just did. In the same area, so that you can't even really see where it stopped. And I will trim it right there, and that stitch is locked in. When I cut my thread, I cut it probably my arm's length, so I wouldn't have too much to get tangled. And remember to tie your knot at the end and to run it through your beeswax. And you may want to go ahead and thread 2 or 3 of these needles so that when you finish one, you can just pick up the next one and get started. But this time, I'm gonna go underneath my tree trunk, careful not to get the back, so my knot is hid underneath. Sometimes it's a little challenge to get started, but I wanted to bring up my stitch underneath so my knot is hidden, and then I'm gonna back stitch over so that corner will not fly up. You can see this goes very quickly because you're making nice big stitches and you're just rocking that needle back and forth. And be careful because this is a pillowcase that you are only getting the top and the batting. And it's either taped or pinned down securely so it lays flat. And whenever I turn, I like to check to make sure everything is still laying flat, because it's easier to make a change here than to wait until I get to the end and it's not laying flat. And because that felt is so dense, you do not want to make too many stitches at one time because it's hard to pull through, which is what I just did. Stitch length comes with practice. They do have something called tiger tape, which has the marks on it to show you how to keep your stitches consistent. We'll save that for another video. Okay, we're getting short here again on our thread, so we're gonna back stitch. And the last 2 stitches. Make sure that's laying flat and trim that off. And we got our last one ready to go. Make sure we've got a knot on the end. And our beeswax. And again, I'm going underneath the felt 2 stitches ahead to hide my knot, and then I'm gonna back stitch 1 time and then start my rocking stitches again. We're almost there. You may have to slow down a little bit when you make these turns just to keep your stitches even. But don't get excited. We'll almost have our tree trunk in place permanently. Coming to the end, so I'll do the same thing. I'll come up on the last stitch, 2 stitches. Our tree trunk is in place. All right, we have got our tree trunk up there, and we've got our bat, and we still got pins on the side, so let's get rid of those. You've got 2 options. One is you can use your embroidery thread to give it some decorative stitching. And I'm gonna hide my knot again. And just do a simple running stitch around the batting and the top just to secure it in place. And if you don't want that much detail, you can use your matching thread, a neutral color thread. And we're gonna tie the end just like we did before. Needle in your left hand, end of the thread in your right. Pinch the end of that thread with the needle in your left hand. Wrap it with your right 1, 2, 3 times. Pinch those wraps with your right hand, pull that needle through, and you got a neat little knot on the end. So now, if you just want to secure the batting and not be seen using neutral thread, you can start from the top or the bottom, either one, but you want to hide your knot, and we're just doing a simple running stitch back and forth. Because this thread is thinner and your needle smaller, you might be able to do 3 or 4 stitches instead of the 2 stitches we did with the bigger needle and the thicker embroidery thread. So there we have almost invisible, and the batting is stitched in place.